Wanted to thank you all for joining us this evening. I'm sure, your days have been busy. You're just coming home from a long day. So we just wanted to take the opportunity to just say thank you. So my name is Dr. Burgess. I am a realtor. I'm licensed in Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina. So I claim I have many, but one of my specialties is working with military members, veterans, and their families, buy homes with clarity. I like to give my clients a lot of information so that they can make well-informed decisions, even when the buying timelines are super tight or you're buying from a distance. I'm also a military spouse, and so I'm familiar with PCSing timelines and all those things. My husband is retired from the Army after over 21 years, so I'm very, very, very familiar with all those things. Tonight, my job will be to give you the clearest picture possible without going into a whole lot of detail or talking about your individual personal issues. My goal is to speak pretty high level so that, I can cover as much as possible within the real estate side and what it looks like to work with me or someone like me if you're in a state that I'm not licensed in, how the home buying process actually flows, how I support my VA buyers. And again, I'm not trying to overwhelm you, just trying to give you as much information.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm Jody K. Wade. I am a loan officer. I currently work with Universal Mortgage and Finance. We're a direct lender. We help individuals purchase their primary residence, investment properties, refinance their mortgages if they would like to do that. As a licensed mortgage loan originator, I help you really think through the process of buying and what that means in reference to monthly payment, look for assistance and grants where necessary to ultimately help you afford that purchase. It's a major financial commitment, and I try my best to make it as simple and stress-free as possible. Of course, I'll ask for documentation, but ultimately, if you are ready to purchase and you're comfortable with the monthly payment, I will help you get into that home, because ownership is what I'm trying to help people to get, right? To own and build equity and build wealth. In real estate investor, I have also extensive experience in analyzing properties and helping people think through what is best for them in reference to building their portfolios. If you ever have a desire to buy a property or multiple properties, I can help you think through that and how to finance that as well. I have experience also really helping people move from denied to approve. Sometimes they talk to a lender and they're like, oh, this is not right, or your credit's not here or there. I have been able to support my clients in figuring out how to get them approved and what needs to be done to do that. And if you need to be on a path to get there in the next 2 to 3 months, if you're not ready right now. Okay. I also used to have a credit repair company, so I can advise you on what needs to be done if necessary to kind of address some credit issues so that you can get to the minimum amount you need. But for VA loans, there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to credit. So please do know that that will never be a hindrance in regards to financing. So I mentioned I'm a loan officer, but I also have my own company. So I provide financial coaching. I help people think through the home buying process, and they are looking into buying an investment property, helping them analyze that. So anything real estate and financing, I'm your person.
What this session is about, again, we're not going into a deep dive class on every possible real estate scenario because I have stories, promise you. Instead, we're going to do big picture view of the process, insight into VA and military buyers, moving, selling, and all those things. And a chance really, to be honest, for you to decide if I'm the right realtor to support you. If you leave here tonight thinking, okay, I understand a little bit more how this works, then I've done my job today. And Laketta is the one to help me. But I also have a whole list of other realtors and across the country who can help with this as well if you're in a state that I'm not licensed in. So in a nutshell, this whole picture is the home buying process, right? So first and foremost, we're going to talk about the brokerage agreement. When you're working with a real estate agent or like myself as a realtor, which just really the difference between a real estate agent and a realtor is that as a realtor, we have different ethics guidelines that we have to follow compared to a real estate agent. And then we belong to other associations compared to a real estate agent. So that's just like a general difference. I am a realtor, and so first and foremost, you would have to sign a brokerage agreement with me to work with me as your agent. Why is that important? The very first thing is that it just allows me to represent your interests. I could show you a house. So if you call me and say, hey, look at it, there's a house in whatever city, I'd like to see it. I could absolutely show you that particular property. But under that circumstance, if you haven't signed a buyer brokerage agreement, I represent the seller. So conversations that you would typically have with somebody that represents you, how much could I offer? Why are they trying to sell? Those kind of conversations I couldn't have. So that's why it's important to sign that buyer brokerage agreement initially, so that you have somebody who's going in with you with the purpose and intention of representing you and your family in those kind of conversations. And it also protects you legally throughout the transaction. So there have been all kinds of lawsuits of someone not signing a buyer brokerage agreement, and then that the buyer ends up buying that particular house with another agent, and then the original agent will sue that other agent for the commission because I was the procuring cause. I was the reason that you bought that house. So we try to avoid all of those things. If you're ready to work with me, you understand, this is what we're trying to do, then we sign that buyer brokerage agreement and I represent you and your interests. So while we have these conversations, what I typically do when I'm talking to my clients, and especially on the initial conversation, I'm trying to understand what your timeline is. So when are you supposed to PCS? One of the questions that I ask is, when do you want keys in hand? So are you separating? Are you retiring? What are your priorities? What are you looking for in the property? What must it have? I explain to you, sometimes people want something like, they'll tell me, I want a really large closet. Okay, well, that's not something that I can search for in the MLS. Here's what I can search for, so that you understand it's not that I didn't hear what you were requesting. They're just certain parameters to try to get you what you're looking for. So I have those kind of conversations. Again, my goal is always to make sure that you understand all the parts of the process and that I'm representing and working for you. So whether you're buying locally or remotely from somewhere else, I'm going to have the same kind of conversations. So the second step is the pre-approval, which is really kind of a second and a first step at the same time, because I have buyers who come to me and they already have a lender that they're wanting to work with because they worked with them before, they're their cousin or whatever the case may be. So they kind of go hand in hand, but if you don't have one yet, that's going to be my next thing to suggest to you, is that you get a pre-approval. That's important because the pre-approval letter goes with the offer that we would suggest. It lets me know what you are capable of spending. My goal is to not take you window shopping, as I call it. So if you fall in love with a $650,000 house and we go to Jody K and Jody K says, oh, that person's only qualified for $450. Okay, why did we look at the $650? So we want to just make sure that we are staying in our lane and that we're spending appropriately and making sure that you can afford what you're looking for. So it also just strengthens your offer. With any offer that we would submit that's attached to it, to let the seller know that you've done a lot of the paperwork ahead of time to make sure that you got pre-approved. I think Jody K, if I'm not mistaken, is going to talk about the difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval, but a pre-approval is much better, and so that's what we attach to any offer. It also prevents surprises later. I work very, very closely with your lender throughout the process. When we go see a property, which is the next step in finding your home, I will go to the lender, and hopefully it's a lender who's available on weekends and evenings, because sometimes that's the only time you all are available to go look at houses. But I will say, okay, we want to just look at this property. This is what it's listed at. We're thinking of offering one of these three options with this amount of seller closing costs, this amount of the seller paying my commission. Show me what the estimates look like, and then that would go to you so that you know at the end of the day, if I pick offer B, this is likely what I'm going to end up paying. Hopefully that makes sense. So step 3 is searching for that property. We can do this in person or remotely. So if you're local and you can come, of course, I would want you to do that. But if you cannot, because you're stationed somewhere else, if you're in North Carolina getting ready to move to Virginia or whatever the case may be, I do things like I offer virtual tours. And I don't just go in and say, this is the room, this is the bathroom. I actually go in and you hear my comments. As soon as I walk in, I'm like, oh, this house smells really nice or has a really nice flow. I have those kind of conversations on camera. I try to, if you're available, I will call you first, like on a Zoom call or WhatsApp or whatever is available to you. And I try to walk you through that. But if you're not available, I'm going to do the video. The video is helpful even if you walk through it with me, because if there's 2 or 3 houses that you're like, which house was which, it helps you to go back and ref. So you're like, okay, which bedroom had the walk-in closet or which the thing, you can go back to those videos and you can reference them and you can make a well-informed decision. If you have somebody who's here in the local area that can come do that too, they can come on the search, they can call you, and I'm still going to do a recording anyway. If you tell me I have a king-size bed with an oversized trunk, I'm going to go in that room and go, okay, if you have a king-size bed, it's going to fit on this wall and blah, blah. So I'm really having those conversations. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So we talk about offer strategy. What do we need to offer? How can we structure structure our offer to win. People ask me this all the time. Can you call an agent and see what their bottom line is? And some agents are chatty Cathy's and they'll tell you that information, but it's really an ethical violation and they shouldn't. So I can call them and see, do you have another offer? They can say yes or no and be telling the truth or not. But I can call and say, hey, do you have another offer? Is there something that we should consider? Whatever the case may be. So we can talk about those things, understanding how VA offers are viewed in certain places, because certain places do not like to work with VA. I don't know why. It's just perception that people have. But then if you're living close to, like if you're going to Fort Bragg, for example, those surrounding cities are very used to having military. So they're open to VA sales because they're likely VA buyer sellers as well. So they're open to that. So sometimes in places, and I can't really say that I know of any in the states that I'm licensed in that are like, we don't want VA. The other thing is sometimes they say they don't want VA buyers because they know that they're not going to pass the VA inspection. VA inspections are very stringent. So that could be the other reason why they don't want a VA buyer. So we have those conversations. We talk to the lender. We have these strategy sessions to make sure that it makes sense for you. Ultimately, you're the one that's buying the house. Ultimately, you're the one that has to pay for the mortgage. And there are times when people go, hey, do you really like this house? And I could tell you, but that's not really my job. It's you. Do you like the house? Or if you're like thinking that you don't know, like you're comparing to, then we're going to have a conversation about, okay, well, you told me you were looking for this. So this house offers more of that. This one doesn't. So then we have strategic conversations. Once we put in that offer and we're under contract, that's step number 5. So I'm the one that's managing your timeline. We have to make sure that you're doing the inspection on time, that we're submitting the results for the inspection to ask them to fix things. We have to make sure that your lender is done with all the things and has the clear to close on time. I'm the one that's communicating with most people. There are some times that I may say, you have several inspectors you can choose from. Here's their information. And once you pick one, an inspector may call you to sign the agreement to do the inspection and get payment from you. But generally, for the most part, I'm the one that people talk to, except your lender. You and your lender are going to have financial conversations that I'm not privy to, that I don't ask anything about. So that person you'll be talking to almost as much as you talk to me. If you're unavailable for the inspection, I do still offer the same kind of virtual opportunity. So I'll call you once the inspector is done so that we can do what's called a walk and talk. We walk through the house and talk about what they found. They usually walk you through how major systems operate and all those kinds of things. So let's talk about remote buying, because it is a thing that sometimes people have to do. I don't ever suggest doing things like not doing any inspections. Even on new construction, I would suggest doing inspection because I want you to know what you're walking into when you buy that house. But sometimes just it works out that clients are not available. This particular client that I have pictured here, the wife couple, they were in Cuba and they couldn't come here before they bought their house. So they relied very heavily on those walkthrough videos that I did. The first time I did one for them, I asked them, is there something you want me to think about when I'm walking through these houses for you to make this easier for you? I typically don't suggest buying a house without ever walking through it. They were able to come for the inspection, but they weren't ever able to come for any tours. It's possible, but you want to make sure that you have somebody who is making sure that they're, representing you all the way through, that they are showing you what the house looks like, telling you things about, because walking just through and just showing you, I could do that on YouTube, I could do that on Facebook. It really doesn't show you anything other than here's a room, here's a bathroom, here's a kitchen. But walking through, opening drawers, is it soft closed drawers, is it not soft closed drawers? What if you open the closet, does it hit the bed, or whatever the case may be? Those things are helpful, especially if you can't come in person. VA loan assumptions. So you're able to, as a VA buyer, assume somebody else's loan. That's called a VA loan assumption. So let's say the house is listed at $500, but they owe $250. You're responsible for that $250 gap in the middle. With VA loan assumptions, the ones that I've been in, there's no appraisal done. Because you're just assuming their loan so whatever they owe, whatever their payments were, however long they have left on the loan, and whatever the interest rate are, you're assuming that, but you're paying the gap. That loan has to be done with whoever services. So if that house was bought with Wells Fargo, you have to apply with Wells Fargo. So even though you've talked to Jody K and she's gotten you all pre-approved and good to go, if you pick this house that has a VA loan assumption because they're offering a 2% rate, you have to go with Wells Fargo because that's who services the loan. You possibly could work with Jody K on the assumption piece, on the gap piece, that other $250, but generally you would be working with the lender who services. Buying a home during or after military service doesn't have to feel overwhelming. It just requires the right right guidance and the right team. So once you have your lender in place and your realtor in place, you can definitely do all those things. You can always, buy a house without having a realtor, but you would have to understand the laws, the contracts, all those things. If you are buying in Virginia, Maryland, or North Carolina, I would love to help you and your family find something. Again, if you're headed elsewhere, I have a whole trusted network of realtors who can help you in wherever you may be going.